Welcome back to another video here on Aviator Records. Now, this week I don't have any new records to show you, so I thought I'd show you some of my favorite records. Now, I don't own all of these. Hopefully one day I will, but yeah. So today I thought I'd show you my favorite albums of the 80s. Now, the 80s was a very important, or at least for me it was a very important era of music, because yeah, there's so many great albums made in the 80s. So yeah, probably my favorite decade of music. Yeah, so let's get started. Number one, I'm gonna say these in order. So we're gonna start with albums from 1980, and the last ones are gonna be from 1989. So the first one on the list is Young Marble Giants and their debut album Colossal Youth from 1980. Now, you probably haven't heard of this album. Maybe you have, and then you know how good it is, but yeah, let me tell you a bit about it. Young Marble Giants was a minimalist post-punk band formed in Wales in the UK. And this was their only album, came out in 1980, and yeah, I just really like it. It's a great album. Very minimalistic, very well produced, well made. Yeah, some of my favorite tracks are Chocolonely, Searching for Mr. Right, and Credit in the Straight World. So if you haven't heard of it, check it out, definitely. Next up on the list we've got The Clash and their fourth album, Sandinista. Came out in 1980 as well. Approximately 1 year after London Calling, which is, you know, by a lot of people considered to be their best album, but personally my favorite is Sandinista, because it's just such a brilliant album. It's a triple album, got 36 tracks on it. It's just bloody brilliant. I mean, I think it's very underrated in their discography, but you know, it's just like a document, or like a documentation of the Clash's influences of music back then. You know, it's got all kinds of genres. It's got reggae, gospel, rockabilly, punk, dub, folk music, funk, even got some rap going on, so it's got everything. Great album. Next up, the third album on the list came out in 1981, and it's Siouxsie and the Banshees, Juju. You've probably heard of Siouxsie and the Banshees. They are a UK post-punk band, and this album is probably their best. I mean, it's just very well made. There's not a bad track on it. Some of my favorite tracks are Spellbound, Into the Light, I love that song. Monitor and Night Shift is very good as well. So, very good album. Number 4, we've got Depeche Mode, obviously, and not Speak and Spell, because I do love Speak and Spell, but my absolute favorite Depeche Mode album is A Broken Frame from 1982. It was their second album after Vince left, so they were just a trio, but I think it's a very underrated album in their discography, and I just love the album cover by Brian Griffin. Brilliant. And the songs, I mean, I think it's, as I said, a very underrated album. I mean, I love Leave in Silence, My Secret Garden, Satellite, I See You is a classic, Sun and the Rainfall, Shouldn't Have Done That. I mean, it's just filled with brilliant tracks. And I far prefer it to I like it way more than Construction Time Again and Speaking Spell. Definitely a great album. Next up, number 5, we've got Tones on Tail and their album Pop, which came out in 1982. I'm sorry, 1984. And Tones on Tail was a side project by the bass player in Bauhaus, which is like a goth band. And Pop is very much a goth record as well. It's very dark, weird, mystical. And it's the only album that they made. They made a couple of 12-inch EPs or singles, and their biggest hit was probably Go, which is a brilliant track. Go listen to it now if you haven't heard it. Even if you've heard it, go listen to it. I really love that track. Timeless. So much energy. Sadly it's not on the album, but you know, came out in 84 as well, I think, so yeah. But the album has some great tracks as well. So it's got Lions, which is really cool, Performance, War, Rain is a classic, so good, and Slender Fungus is just a brilliant psychedelic or whatever, you know, it's just a very fun track. So definitely one of my favorite albums. Number 6, we've got Cocteau Twins and their album Treasure, which also came out in 1984. Cocteau Twins was a Welsh dream pop band. Oh, I'm sorry, not Welsh. Scottish. A Scottish dream pop band. And they made some brilliant albums in the 80s, so it was very difficult for me to choose one, because I also like Victoria Land and Bluebell and all. But Treasure is just their first truly great album. I mean, it's got tracks like Ivo, Persephone, Pandora for Cindy, Domino. I love that track. It's a great end to the album. It's got a beautiful album cover, and Elizabeth Fraser's voice is so delicate, so fragile, but also very strong and powerful. So yeah, and the production is great as well. Even though the drum machines are a bit dated, I still really like the 80s production on it. Number 7, we've got Tom Waits and his album Rain Dogs from 1985. Now, this was the first album I ever heard by Tom, and I was just mind blown. I had never heard anything like it before. It was just his voice, there's nothing else like it, and the tracks are great. I mean, very short, there's a lot of songs on here. I think there's like 17 songs, and the album is like 57 minutes long or something. And it's just one of those masterpiece albums in my opinion. I love every single song on here. Some of my favorites are Singapore, Clap Hands, Jockey Full of Bourbon, Anywhere I Lay My Head, Rain Dogs, Gun Street Girl, Tango Till They're Sore, Time, Downtown Train. I could just go on. I love every single song on this album, so it definitely deserves a spot on this list. Now, next up at number 8 we've got Front 242 and their third album, Official Version, which I think is probably their second best album. My favorite album of theirs is Turning For You, but that came out in 91, so I can't include it on this list, unfortunately. But Official Version from 87 is a very strong album as well. It's got tracks like Quite Unusual, Master Hit that I talked about a couple of weeks ago. It's got Television Station, Slaughter, Rerun Time. It's just very, very good EBM music. Number 9 we've got XTC and their album Oranges and Lemons, which came out in 1989. And it's just a very fun album. I mean, a lot of people would probably pick English Settlement or Skylarking, and I love those albums, but this one is just special for me. Very fun to listen to. I never get enough of it. You've got tracks like their big hit, Mayor of Simpletown. It's got King for a Day, One of the Millions, Across This Anthiep, Shark Hills and Children, which is just so beautiful. It's just a great, great album. Now the last one on my list is Einstürzende Neubauten and their album Haus, Lüge from 1989, obviously. It's very industrial. I mean, to me it's the definition of industrial music, and I love industrial music. So. Very good. And it's got tracks like Ferio, Haus, Lüge, Fiat Lux, Schwindel, Der Kuss. Just brilliant album. And I know a lot of people would say that Halber Mensch is the best 80s album by Neubauten, but I think this one is a bit stronger actually. I love Halber Mensch, but Haus, Lüge is just a bit more developed. Yeah, I love them both. I had to pick one, so yeah. Tomorrow it could be Halber Mensch. So those were my top 10 albums of the 80s. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. Yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye!